When Karen banned my nephew from using the community pool, I didn't know her name. 6 months later, I knew her bank account numbers and entire corruption history. That transformation happened because Karen Mitchell made one critical mistake. She picked a fight with a retired construction lawyer who'd spent 20 years unraveling fraud schemes and had nothing left to lose. 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I'm standing in my doorway in my bathrobe, steam rising from my coffee mug, facing 2 confused police officers and one smug woman in tennis whites. What would you do if your HOA Karen tried to weaponize police against you? My name is Dave Martinez. 8 months ago, I thought I was moving to paradise. Willowbrook Estates, 127 pristine homes with a $400,000 community pool. I paid premium for the corner lot with pool view, $750,000 when comparable houses sold for $650,000. Worth every penny, especially after watching my wife Sarah battle cancer for 3 years. Sarah died last October. Our house felt like a museum of memories, so I packed up and moved to Willowbrook to start fresh. Retired from construction law after 2 decades fighting contractor fraud. Every morning, I'd sit with coffee watching sunrise reflect off the pool's surface, exactly what my grief counselor recommended. That's when I first noticed her. Karen Mitchell, 48, real estate agent, HOA vice president, owner of the model home. Always in designer athleisure, blonde highlights perfect, carrying that damn binder everywhere. Married to city councilman Brad Mitchell, which meant she knew all the right people. The first months were blissfully Karen-free. Then summer arrived, and with it my nephew Miguel. Miguel's 16, my brother's kid from Phoenix. Smart as a whip, heading to engineering school, closest thing to a son I'll ever have. Sarah and I never had kids, too busy with careers, then focused on her treatment. The trouble started in June. Miguel invited 2 friends from his summer job for a pool day. Nice kids, polite, the kind who say thank you, Mr. Martinez, without prompting. That's when Karen appeared poolside with her clipboard like some HOA Grim Reaper. "Excuse me," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "I need to see guest passes for these young men." Guest passes? I'd lived there 8 months and never heard of guest passes. "Their family," I explained. "This is Miguel, my nephew, and his friends from work." Karen's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Rules are rules, Mr. Martinez. HOA bylaws clearly state that excessive guest usage requires pre-registration and approved guest passes." I offered to register the boys as extended visitors, but Karen wasn't interested in reasonable. "No exceptions," she declared. "Pool privileges are immediately suspended for Lot 47 pending compliance review." Miguel and his friends quietly gathered their towels, embarrassed and confused. That night, Karen posted an official notice on the community board. She even announced it at the weekly HOA meeting with theatrical disappointment. Sitting in that basement community center, I realized this wasn't about pool rules. This was about power and putting the newcomer in his place. Karen had just made her first mistake. She'd picked a fight with someone who'd spent 20 years dealing with bullies who hide behind contracts and fine print. Karen didn't waste time escalating. 3 days later, I found certified mail scheduling a compliance hearing with 48 hours notice. The hearing was Thursday at 7 p.m., Sarah's birthday. I'd planned to visit her grave with sunflowers. The letter cited violations I'd apparently missed. Trash cans visible from street. They weren't. Lawn height exceeding 3.5 inches. I'd measured 3.2. And failure to maintain community harmony through appropriate guest management. I did what any good lawyer does when facing hostile opponents. I read the fine print. Every page of HOA documents, plus the original community charter. 20 years of construction law teaches you the devil's always in the details. Buried on page 47, I found gold. Reasonable accommodation shall be provided for family gatherings and multi-generational household activities. Karen's guest policy directly violated the foundational document she claimed to enforce. Thursday evening, I walked into Karen's dining room carrying a manila folder with every relevant document highlighted and tabbed. Karen opened with a PowerPoint presentation about maintaining community standards and preserving property values, with thinly veiled references to certain residents who didn't understand our way of life. When she finished, I quietly stood and began laying out documents. "Before we proceed," I said, "I'd like to point out several procedural violations. First, HOA business cannot be conducted in a board member's private residence without community notice. Second, 48-hour notice violates our bylaws requiring 7 days minimum. Third, your alleged violations don't correspond to any specific bylaw language. I open my folder. According to our charter, reasonable accommodation shall be provided for family gatherings. My nephew's pool day falls squarely under this protection. Karen's face flushed. That language is outdated. The original charter can only be modified by community-wide vote. Has there been such a vote? Silence. Here's where Karen made her critical error. Instead of acknowledging procedural issues, she pivoted to personal attack. Maybe Mr. Martinez is having trouble adjusting to community life after his recent loss. Perhaps the stress is overwhelming. The room went dead quiet. I gathered my documents slowly. Thank you all for your time. I'll be reviewing our community charter more thoroughly. That night, I opened my laptop and began deep research I hadn't done since my last major fraud case. HOA formation documents, municipal filings, Karen's real estate history, everything public record if you know where to look. By 2 a.m., I'd found the first thread. Karen Mitchell Realty had been exclusive sales agent during Willowbrook's construction. Exclusive arrangements usually came with incentives. Time to see what those incentives had been. Karen's next move came fast. Within a week, she'd organized Neighborhood Watch Patrol, 3 residents with clipboards and cameras documenting every minor rule deviation. Suddenly, people got violation notices for things ignored for years. But I was getting special attention, daily drive-bys, photographs, printed warnings under visitors' windshield wipers. Miguel started joking that Karen was stalking us, but I could see it wearing on him. A 16-year-old shouldn't worry about getting his uncle in trouble just by existing. That's when Maria Santos approached me. Small woman with steel spine, the kind of accountant who could spot discrepancies from 3 counties away. Dave, she said quietly, we need to talk. There are things about this HOA's finances that don't add up. While Karen played security guard, I was doing what construction lawyers do best, following the money. I'd installed security cameras and began logging Karen's patrol schedule. Every drive-by, photograph, intimidation tactic, all time-stamped and documented. The pool incident that changed everything happened Friday afternoon. Miguel and friends waited until designated family hours, everything by the book. Karen appeared with clipboard and 2 patrol volunteers like some HOA SWAT team. Exit the pool immediately, she announced. Lot 47 remains under suspension. The boys complied without argument, but Karen wasn't satisfied. She followed them to my house, voices rising with each step. By the time they reached my driveway, half the neighborhood was watching from windows. Instead of engaging in shouting, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Karen, I said calmly, can you cite the specific bylaw justifying ongoing suspension? She kept ranting, now on camera. This is about more than pool rules. This is about people who fit our community values and people who don't. 3 neighbors emerged, clearly disturbed by Karen's tone and implications. If you can't control your guests, Karen continued, maybe this community isn't right for you. I emailed the recording to the HOA board with formal harassment complaint. The emergency meeting was called for Tuesday. Karen's defense was predictable, protecting the community from outside influences and property value threats. After the meeting, Maria Santos slipped me a manila envelope. Financial documents, she whispered. Look at construction contracts versus actual amenity costs. That night, I spread documents across my dining table and felt the familiar thrill of spotting inconsistencies that would unravel everything. The numbers told a story Karen didn't want anyone to read. The HOA had been billed $2.1 million for community amenities that actually cost $1.4 million. $700,000 had vanished into thin air, and Karen Mitchell Realty was involved in every transaction. The smoking gun was hiding in emails Maria had saved for 3 years. Revised community amenity pricing, confidential between Karen and the developer. The original budget showed $2.1 million for amenities, but actual construction invoices showed only $1.4 million. Karen Mitchell Realty had received referral bonuses 400% above normal commission rates. But the real smoking gun was Karen's deleted email explicitly discussing profit-sharing arrangements with the developer for inflated amenity budgets. This wasn't about pool access anymore. This was systematic financial fraud bleeding our community dry for 3 years. Every resident had overpaid for substandard amenities through inflated HOA dues designed to cover missing money. "Why didn't you bring this to the board earlier?" I asked Maria. "Because Karen controls the board. I needed someone with legal expertise to understand what we were looking at." The irony was delicious. Karen's attempts to silence me had motivated me to investigate the exact financial corruption she was hiding. Building a criminal fraud case requires evidence, allies, and patience. Maria brought financial access, Jim Walsh provided board legitimacy, and I contributed 20 years of construction law expertise. Our strategy was multi-pronged: criminal referral to the district attorney, civil action to recover stolen funds, HOA governance reform, and community education about residents' rights. We filed formal public records requests for all HOA financial documents, completely legal and within our rights. Karen would have to either comply, giving us official documentation of fraud, or obstruct, adding criminal charges. Karen's desperation became visible the moment our requests hit her desk. Within 48 hours, she'd called an emergency board meeting to propose disruptive resident removal procedures, with me as obvious target. Her false narrative was impressive. I was a mentally unstable widower using lawyer tricks to harass honest volunteers. She suggested my grief had made me paranoid and vindictive. The character assassination spread across social media like wildfire. Fake posts claiming I was planning to sue residents, whisper campaigns about my unstable mental state, fear-mongering about increased insurance costs. But Karen's masterstroke was cultural dog whistles, subtle comments about certain residents not fitting community values and maintaining our way of life. Never explicitly discriminatory, but implications were clear. Instead of responding to personal attacks, I continued methodical evidence gathering while documenting every statement. 20 years taught me bullies always escalate when initial tactics fail, and escalation leads to mistakes. The board meeting was standing room only. Karen's presentation included formal proposal for disruptive behavior penalties, fines up to $1,000 for residents who undermine community harmony through frivolous complaints. When she finished, I stood with my folder. "Before the board considers penalties, I'd like to present concerns about procedural violations in tonight's format." I methodically outlined how penalties violated due process requirements, how the emergency meeting violated bylaws requiring 7 days' notice, how the disruptive behavior language was unconstitutionally vague. More importantly, I continued, opening my folder, "I have documented evidence of a 3-year pattern of harassment directed at residents requesting financial transparency." I presented time-stamped documentation of Karen's harassment campaign, drive-by photography, intimidation of visitors, attempts to weaponize code enforcement. That's when Karen lost composure. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Mr. Martinez is using lawyer intimidation tactics to silence board members trying to protect this community from people who don't understand our standards." I kept recording. Let her dig her own grave. After the meeting, Karen cornered me in the parking lot. What she didn't know was my phone was still recording. "Look, Dave," she said with fake concern. "Maybe we can work out differences. The HOA budget has flexibility. We could arrange for your pool maintenance to be covered if you could drop these complaints." Attempted bribery on tape. That's generous, Karen, but I think financial transparency benefits the entire community. Her mask slipped completely. "If you don't back off, you'll regret it. This community has ways of dealing with troublemakers, and my husband has friends in city government." Threat also on tape. Next morning, Karen filed false police report claiming I'd threatened her during our conversation. She timed the complaint perfectly, right as I was having morning coffee, ensuring maximum neighborhood visibility when patrol cars arrived. But Karen had finally made the mistake I'd been waiting for. She'd weaponized law enforcement based on demonstrably false complaint, and I had audio evidence proving it. When officers arrived at 6 a.m., I was ready with my phone, recording of the previous night's conversation, and 20 years of experience dealing with people who thought connections could override evidence. "Officers," I said calmly, "I believe you're here about a complaint from Karen Mitchell. Before we proceed, I'd like you to hear the actual conversation she's complaining about." The officers listened to my recording with expressions shifting from skepticism to disbelief to barely contained anger. Nothing pisses off law enforcement quite like having their resources weaponized for personal vendettas. Ma'am, Officer Rodriguez told Karen, filing false reports is criminal offense. We strongly advise you to reconsider future complaints unless you have actual evidence. But Karen was beyond rational thought. Facing exposure of financial crimes and collapse of community power base, she launched full scorched earth mode. While Karen was busy with damage control, I was filing comprehensive criminal complaint with the district attorney's office. 20 years taught me exactly how prosecutors think, and I presented evidence in their preferred format. Timeline, financial documentation, recorded admissions, pattern of obstruction. The DA's white-collar crime unit assigned Detective Sarah Chun to investigate. Within 48 hours, she'd issued subpoenas for all HOA financial records, developer contracts, and Karen's personal banking information going back 5 years. This is substantial, Detective Chun told me. Financial fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to defraud, and now obstruction of justice. We're looking at potential federal charges. Karen's panic was visible to the entire community. Her real estate license was under review, her husband's city council position generating negative publicity. Criminal defense attorneys don't come cheap, and her illegal profits were about to be frozen as evidence. But cornered animals are dangerous. My pool equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. $3,000 damage. Security cameras were tampered with. My home office window was broken by a stray baseball that traveled 200 yards from the nearest playing field. The harassment expanded to my professional reputation. Organized phone calls to my former law firm claiming I was having mental breakdown, letters to State Bar suggesting I was using my license to intimidate citizens. But the evidence avalanche was now too substantial to contain. Security footage captured her property sabotage. Phone records documented coordinated harassment. Most damaging, Detective Chen's investigation uncovered additional kickback schemes involving landscaping, pool maintenance, and snow removal contracts. The mandatory community meeting required by state law when criminal investigations involve HOA finances was scheduled for Saturday. All stakeholders would be present: residents, media, law enforcement, Karen's criminal defense attorney, and a very prepared construction lawyer with nothing left to lose. Saturday morning arrived with crisp tension. Willowbrook Elementary Gymnasium was packed. 89 of our 127 households plus Channel 8 News, Detective Chun, Karen's attorney, and enough social media live streams to crash the school's Wi-Fi. Karen's opening move was predictable: play the victim. Her attorney had coached her well. She spoke about being persecuted for volunteering to protect community standards and harassed by a man who couldn't accept legitimate authority. When Karen finished, I connected my laptop to the projector. 20 years of courtroom presentations taught me visual evidence trumps emotional appeals. Before we discuss personality conflicts, I began, let's look at some numbers. First slide showed our community's original construction budget, $2.1 million for amenities. Second slide showed actual construction costs, $1.4 million. The difference, $700,000, appeared in red. This represents money our community paid for amenities we never received, I explained. Almost $6,000 per household that vanished during construction. Gasps rippled through crowd. The next slides documented ongoing overcharges. Pool maintenance 40% above market rate. Landscaping triple comparable providers. Snow removal contracts for a Texas community averaging 1 snow day per decade. But the smoking gun was email evidence. Karen's electronic confession filled the gymnasium screen in 24-point font. Revised community amenity pricing, confidential, and profit-sharing arrangements for inflated amenity budgets. This isn't personality conflict, I said. This is documented financial fraud. That's when Karen's composure shattered. Against her attorney's frantic head shaking, she stood up defending herself. Those emails are taken out of context, she shouted. I negotiated the best deals I could. If Dave Martinez wasn't so obsessed with destroying me because I enforced pool rules against his nephew, none of this would be issue. She just admitted to targeting Miguel while confirming financial irregularities. I've devoted 3 years protecting property values and maintaining standards, Karen continued, voice rising. If that means keeping certain elements from undermining what we've built, I make no apologies. The racist undertones were unmistakable. Phones emerged throughout crowd recording her meltdown. Detective Chun chose that moment to address the crowd. The district attorney's office has filed criminal charges including fraud, embezzlement, mail fraud, and conspiracy. This is now active criminal investigation. The community response was swift and overwhelming. Resident after resident stood sharing stories of Karen's harassment, financial hardships from inflated dues, families who'd moved away rather than endure her targeting. 6 months later, justice had beautiful symmetry. Karen Mitchell pled guilty to federal fraud charges, agreeing to full restitution plus penalties. Final tally: $847,000 in stolen funds plus interest and legal fees. Her real estate license was permanently revoked, and her husband quietly resigned when his cover-up involvement came to light. But real victory was what we built from corruption's ashes. Our new bylaws require transparent financial reporting, resident oversight committees, and independent audits. Every expenditure over $500 requires board approval with full community notification. Maria Santos was elected president. The recovered funds transformed Willowbrook from Karen's authoritarian fiefdom into collaborative community we'd hoped for. We eliminated HOA dues for 3 years, funded actual improvements, and established the Sarah Martinez Memorial Scholarship for engineering students. Miguel was the first recipient. Our story spread beyond Willowbrook. Property law journals featured our case as model for community organizing. State legislators cited our experience drafting HOA reform bills. Most importantly, residents across Texas know they have power when they organize around facts and law. Last month, we held our first annual community pool party honoring Sarah's memory. Families gathered around the pool that sparked this entire conflict, sharing food, stories, and satisfaction of justice served. Miguel visited for the celebration. "Uncle Dave," he said, "Aunt Sarah would be so proud of what you built here." He was right. We built something Sarah would have loved. A community based on fairness, transparency, and mutual respect rather than fear and control. What's your worst HOA horror story? Share it in the comments. Remember, you have more power than corrupt officials want you to know. Research your rights, document everything, and don't let anyone bully you out of transparency.